So I'm on my way to go help a friend sell a motorcycle. And I thought that maybe you guys might, oh, shoot. Problem with the small trunk, hold on. Oh gosh. I'm on my way to help a friend sell a motorcycle. And I thought I would take you guys along and give you 5 easy steps on how to sell a motorcycle. Hello, my beautiful motorheads. Welcome to FÉROCE, where we inspire you to live fiercely. I'm your host, Annick Magac. Now let's get back to it. I got places to be, bikes to sell. Let's go. So you're probably wondering, why would somebody want me to sell their motorcycle? Well, let's be honest. Most of us are extremely lazy when it comes to selling motorcycles, which is why they end up accumulating over time. Now, it's super fun to purchase motorcycles, right? To go shopping, to look, go to the dealerships, to actually go peruse all the websites, talk to your friends, test ride stuff. Super duper 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 fun. When it comes to selling, none of us really want to do that because it just feels like it takes a ton of time. And I get that. So sometimes friends have me sell their motorcycles, and I will do that for a commission or a percentage of the sale. Win-win for everybody. Whoopsies. Maybe we shouldn't take that turn so fast. Why do people not want to sell their motorcycles? Like I said, it seems like a lot of work. But if you follow my 5 steps, you'll find out that it's actually not that big of a burden to actually sell a motorcycle. If you're ready, God, I gotta stop. If you're prepared, you can do it relatively easy. And I want to make the selling as easy as possible for you. And there's another reason for this, is that I wrote a book about how your environment affects your life. And your environment, where you live, where you reside, where you work, is all a reflection of your inner self. Okay, we got a little deep there. Stay with me. With motorcycles, because they're not that big, oh my goodness. Hope I don't make you guys car sick. Or maybe I should just drive slower. With motorcycles, because they're relatively small in comparison to a car or a truck or a boat or any other thing motor related, right? So it's just easy to accumulate them because they don't just take that much space up. And I have found over the years that a lot of people will also just like dump their bikes at friends' houses or get storage units and like stuff a bunch of bikes in a storage unit. And then without even really thinking about it, over time, they've accumulated a collection of motorcycles. Now, while that seems like it's a great idea and fun and, I truly believe that you should own as many motorcycles as shoes because you need a different bike for every riding situation, right? So I'm never going to tell somebody not to get a bike. Sometimes though, it can become a burden to own so many motorcycles because you actually have to take care of them. And if you don't use a vehicle, they deteriorate over time. Motorcycles are meant to be used. And if they just sit, they rot. They get lonely. I mean, who wants a lonely motorcycle? It's sad. So the other part to this is that what happens over time is that you're sitting on these motorcycles, they're rotting, and they're depreciating over time, right? So you think, in your mind, everything that we own is so great, so wonderful, has so much value. But the value really is your emotional value and tie to that actual vehicle. It doesn't mean that the Kelley Blue Book amount of that vehicle reflects what your emotional attachment is to that vehicle. So the problem happens is that you get lazy about selling a bike, and then 5 years later, that bike is worth a lot less than it would have been if you had just sold it right away when you decided that you weren't going to ride it, or life happened and you just ended up not riding it or replacing it with something else, right? So what's the best thing to do? Because for me, it's I'm going to look at this as an investment. And if I'm sitting on an asset that's not providing me either money or joy, then why would I hold on to it? So if you sell that motorcycle and perhaps you don't know what you're going to put that money into next, whether that's another motorcycle or a life event that you might need the money for, that money is better off sitting in a high yield savings account, a CD, or better yet, an investment, even for the short term, versus letting that bike sit and rot in a storage unit a corner of a garage. The worst case is outside, because there's a bunch of you that are guilty about this where, you know, you let the bike sit outside, you wheeled it underneath the porch, you're like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be okay, it's not in the rain, you forget about it, and then all it takes is one winter outside under a cover, and it is filled with mice poop, the squirrels have eaten your wires, there's nests in it, there's a snake curled up, ugh. And because you have a cover on it, it wasn't breathing, so then, you know, the bolts and the frame are rusting on it, brakes are seizing, there's leaves up against it. Like, you guys have all seen this, and you guys have probably also experienced going to purchase a motorcycle that has been in that kind of condition. I always believe if a bike doesn't work out for you, and here's the other thing, is like sometimes we'll let our ego get the best of us and we'll be like, we wanted this bike forever, we purchased it, and then we quickly realized that it was a bad decision, whether it didn't suit our riding capabilities or it was like, just not it didn't fit the needs of what we had. And sometimes it's hard to admit that we made a bad decision, especially when we lose money on that decision. It can be really frustrating. So I'm here to tell you, when that happens, let it go. Like, don't feel bad that you made a bad decision. Like, you know, you can give yourself a day or two to like sulk and, you know, be bummed out about it. And I get it, because like I had mentioned in a previous podcast that I bought a motorcycle. It was my first brand new motorcycle, and it was awful. It was just a bad decision. It ended up not being what I wanted. And I also took a hit money-wise. I lost money on that actual motorcycle, which was like a real kick in the you-know-what. So I just have to say, in the end, who cares about that? Like, it's much better to let these things go and then use that money towards something else that you want. And if you've got like 2 or 3 motorcycles sitting around, think about it. Like, you could sell all of them, sell 3 motorcycles, you'll have more money, and then you could really go out and buy something much newer, greater, or something that you just really want. So today I'm going to share 5 easy steps on how to make the selling process easier. And again, this friend is having me sell the motorcycle because he doesn't want to deal with it. And he doesn't want to deal with it because he is too busy working, and it's just not a high priority. But it's a high priority every time he goes into his garage and sees that that bike's not being used, and it's taking up space, and it's not being ridden. And he bought the newer version of that motorcycle. So basically he bought the same bike again, just the better, newer version. So he's really just not going to ride it, right? It's a waste of space. It's valuable to him to just offload it on me to sell it because he's too busy. And that's fine. Let's acknowledge, like, sometimes we're just too busy to take care of things, and it's okay to have people help you. And that's what I'm here for. So I am going to go prep everything and get it ready to sell so that he can take that money and put it into something else, or maybe even, honestly, I don't even actually know what he's going to put that money into. Maybe it'll be upgrading something he currently has, or track days, or who knows. Not my business. Doesn't really matter. And now I can focus on driving and having fun on some of these back roads here. Step 1 to this whole selling process is that we want to see what condition the motorcycle is in. And then we want to gather up all the parts that belong to the motorcycle that you still have, whether that's some of the original parts or anything that you might have taken off the bike to make it lighter, or even sometimes we keep some of the broken parts and they actually might have value to the next owner. The other thing we want to do is assess whether or not we are going to sell all the aftermarket parts with the motorcycle. In order to get the price right, some people might take off the aftermarket parts and sell those independently on, say, eBay or Facebook Marketplace. So that's kind of a decision that you need to make about, kind of like, where do you want to price the bike? After we have assessed what condition the motorcycle is in, we're going to want to clean it and, basically take the dust off, make it sparkly, make the plastics look good. No bird poop or anything like that. Let's get rid of all that and prepare ourselves to take photographs. We're going to want to take photos and make sure that we get some really good angles, the typical views. And at least one video, because even though you might not put the video on, say, Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, it's good to have the video so that if somebody asks for more information before showing up, you can just send them the video and say, hey, this is a walk around of the bike. Another thing that I like to do is to make sure to cover up the actual license plate. There's just no reason to have some of your personal information out in the internet if you don't have to have it there. So just cover it up or take it off. In this case, I don't have my whole toolkit here, and I'm not really sure where the owner has all his tools. So I'm just covering up the plate and just making it tidy so that somebody can also see, like, this particular motorcycle has a license plate eliminator and some fancy aftermarket tail lights. So I found a few cleaning products in the garage, and I have to say that I totally forgot to bring what I like to use, which is a product called Honda Polish, or Spectro makes another comparable product to Honda Polish. And I'm not sponsored by either one of them, but basically it's a product that you spray on and then buff it, and the bike looks like it's brand new. Kind of takes out any of the watermarks, anything like this. When we sell a bike, we want to make sure that it looks, of course, as best as possible, unless you don't really care how much money you're getting for it. But this is a high ticket item, and I have to talk to the owner, but I believe that this bike retailed new around $18,000, and he's hoping to get, actually, I don't even know. I need to talk to him about what he wants to sell the bike for, but let's just assume at this point that the bike is worth $14,000 or valued at $14,000. So we'll see. But for a motorcycle of that, used motorcycle of that price, then we want to really make sure that it is looking as good as it can, because it's a beautiful bike and it's in wonderful shape and it doesn't have that many miles on it. So let's get cleaning. Like I said, I would love to use my polishing cleaner, which just kind of gets rid of like any rain spots or anything like that. But I'm just going to go over the bike and give it a nice wipe down. Another good thing to do, or another good reason to wipe down the bike is that when we wipe it down and we touch every surface, we then can see, is there some random bolt missing, or is there like maybe a part of the plastic that might be cracked or broken that we just maybe didn't notice before. So it's always kind of good to just take a little bit of time and just see where the bike condition is at, and to just make sure that everything is as it should be, because there's nothing worse than getting a bike together and then you realize you go to sell it and the seller shows up and they're like, dude, guy, and in my case, lady, you didn't disclose this. If I had known that this bracket was missing that costs $800 and is irreplaceable, I wouldn't have been interested in the bike. So we want to be as honest as we can. If we want to have good people buying from us, we need to show up and be as honest about what the condition of the bike is. And just to do, just be a good person. Like, there's no reason to be a jerk, right? So that's what we do. You might notice too that I have positioned this motorcycle so there's nothing really defining about the environment behind me. In this day and age, we can't be careful enough to just, try to mitigate our personal information that's out on the internet. And of course, if somebody really wants to know, they'll figure it out, right? But, we just don't see, I just did this and look, the mirror's loose. So I will tighten that up and also get rid of this, although I might just leave the tag on here because it does show that the bike's been serviced. See, it's like small stuff like this. It's like, it seems like it's not a big deal, and it kind of isn't a big deal. I mean, obviously this can be tightened, but there's a subconscious thing that happens when somebody comes and buys a bike and they, like, say the guy got on here was like, oh, hey, can I test ride it? Or he gets on it and he just starts futzing with things that, he'll move this. And it's a subconscious indicator that the owner of the bike has not really been taking care of the motorcycle. Now, that might seem a little crazy to say, but there's a lot of assumptions we make subconsciously when we're making big purchases. And so I just would personally tighten this up and make sure that everything just is super tight. Because, look, this bike is like, it's tight. So step 2, we need to determine, what are we going to price this motorcycle at? We need to determine how much did we pay for it when we initially bought it. So whether that is you bought it through the dealership or you bought it secondhand through a friend, maybe you haven't kept those paperwork, especially if you bought it through a friend, you might not remember how much you paid for it, even if you had the DMV paperwork, because as we know, not everyone, the numbers may not necessarily reflect what you might have actually paid for it, but I don't know. In trying to find the most up-to-date value of what a motorcycle is going for, The tried and true method is to just go to the Kelley Blue Book, which we will do, and I'll show you how I navigate that. But basically, we're going to go into the Kelley Blue Book after we've determined what the pricing is in the Kelley Blue Book for this particular make, model, and mileage. We then need to make an emotional decision, which is this. What are you willing to sell the motorcycle for? Now, all of us think to some degree that everything that we own is amazing and everything that we own is like of very high value. But the truth of the matter is some things just aren't. And as I mentioned earlier, things depreciate over time. And so in your mind, because you paid, say, $18,000 for this, you're like, oh, I should get, $17,000 for it. But if the market is saying that this bike is actually only worth $12,000, you really need to think, okay, well, I can't get $17,000, or I can hold on to the bike and put it up for sale and then wait as long as possible to find just that right buyer who will pay that $17,000. Now, if you need money right away, which is something to consider because as we all know, we have seen the ads where a person has written, having a baby, just bought a house, need cash, et cetera, need bail for jail. I don't know, whatever the situation is. We need to make an assessment of, okay, like how much do I really need out of this? How much is it actually valued at? And how important is it for me to just get the money and either put that into another motorcycle or invest it or put it aside for another purchase or put it towards some kind of class or race school you want to take, any of that. And just be honest with yourself. What is it actually worth? And be intentional about being like, this is completely an emotional choice. I can say from wiping this down that I can tell that our boy did not ride this that much. And this is a good case of like, yeah, just let it go. If you're not actively using a vehicle, you can always sell it and you can always get another one. I always say that motorcycles are very easy to buy, a little bit harder to get rid of, but they are relatively easy to sell versus a car. So don't think about your purchases as being like that precious or that important. And, I'm saying that because we all do. We create a beautiful bond with our motorcycles, but things just change in life daily, monthly, weekly, yearly. And sometimes your priorities change and sometimes your interests change. And it's okay to change. And it's okay to let things go and to let newer things come into your life. I totally believe that the right motorcycle with a little bit of patience will show up in your life. So it's okay. We're going to let this baby go and he's going to decide what he wants to do with the money that he gets. One major step that people often overlook is getting their paperwork together. And by that, I mean making sure that you have your title. A lot of people lose their titles, and it is super annoying when you go to purchase a motorcycle and a person realizes, yeah, I don't know where the title is. When that happens, they have to go back to DMV and get a new title. It is a waste of everybody's time. We're so excited when we go to purchase a motorcycle and we want everything to just happen quickly. And I will tell you that it will hurt a sale if you just don't have it together. One of the things that I personally do is that I keep all my titles together in a fireproof safe in my house. And I do that because considering everything that's going on with wildfires and floodings and things like that, it's just a good thing to have. It's such a pain in the neck to have to get all that paperwork together should anything unfortunately happen. So just to be on the safe side and safeguard that, put it in the safe, have it all together in one folder in the safe so that you are not wasting time trying to find this kind of paperwork. The other thing that I like to do is that I keep a folder for each vehicle, and within that folder, I put all the receipts and all my notes. And the receipts are from oil changes, anything that I bought aftermarket, any type of service. I do all the service with my BFF, so I know it's more for me. It's like, what parts did I buy and what are the dates of those parts being bought? The other thing that I do that is good practice is that within your manual that comes with the motorcycle, there's a manual. Yes, people, there's still manuals. I will put in the back pages the date and the mileage that I did the work on the motorcycle. So for instance, if I do an oil filter change, I'll put the date on there. If I tighten the chain or put a new chain on, the date, the mileage goes in there. And you think you're going to remember these things, but I guarantee you, it's like you never remember when you did your last oil change. You're like, I think it was like, you know, 2,100 miles. And it's like, no, it was like 1,500 miles or whatever, like it's never really what you think it is. And there's like too many things going on in life that you have to keep track of. You don't need to remember these details. Just write it down and forget it. But just remember where you wrote it down. The other thing I want to cover in selling a motorcycle is that you want to be prepared for when somebody shows up. So the thing to do is to print out a bill of sale. Now, each county and state typically has a different bill of sale. You don't necessarily need to use the form off the internet. You could do a handwritten bill of sale. Most states will take it. Really what they want is their sales tax, right? But when you have a bill of sale ready, you don't have to worry about the back and forth. Once this motorcycle leaves the property, like I don't want to have to think about it ever again. So it's annoying when the buyer comes back and is like, hey, you never signed the paperwork, and then you get to coordinate a time to make that happen. So get ahead of that, do the paperwork, and it just makes the selling experience better. And it also shows a buyer that you are super serious, you take really good care of your things, and you are prepared to make it happen. On a new motorcycle like this, which is a 2022 KTM Super Duke R1290, I don't know if there's a lien on this motorcycle or not, and I'm going to have a conversation with the owner and see. Now, if there is a lien on a motorcycle, a sale is possible, but it gets mucky, and it's not an easy process. It's an easy process if you have a lien on a motorcycle and you want to go to a dealership and trade this in for something else. Not a problem. Dealerships deal with liens and that type of paperwork all the time, so they're prepared to take care of that. And anything that they can get you to trade a motorcycle in and buy something newer for their books, they're going to want to do. So they're going to make it happen. But if you're doing a private sale, having a lien against a motorcycle is just a pain in the butt. It can happen. You have to deal with extra paperwork. There's a longer lead time, and it's super annoying. And as a buyer, it's a huge turnoff. I personally will not buy any motorcycle that has a lien against it. Now, the motorcycle can be in perfect condition, but you don't know who you're dealing with, and people are lazy, and people don't follow through, and they don't take care of their paperwork. And the last thing you want to do is buy a motorcycle, and then it's 6 months before the lien has been figured out and fixed. So as a good seller, pay off the lien if you can. Pay off with whatever, you're going to get money coming in. And of course, this might financially be like a little bit of a rough spot, or you might have to make some changes or decisions to make that happen. But I'm telling you, if you can get that lien off the motorcycle, it's going to make your life a lot easier, and it's going to have more value. Once you do pay off that lien, the lien company is going to have DMV issue a new title. That new title is going to come, and it is going to remove from it, because if you look at your title with a lien, it says on the title, lien, several times across the title. So you want a clean title, as they say. It's a term, a clean title without a lien on it. Believe me, it's going to make your life a million times easier. And this step 3, let me tell you, a lot of people just overlook. And then when the buyer comes, they're fumbling to get the paperwork together, or, you just want to make it as smooth as possible, because even though this is not a dealership or a company, we want good customer service. It really does go a long way. And the motorcycle community is super small. Everybody knows each other to a certain degree. So you want to make whatever interaction you have with a fellow motorcyclist as easy and lovely as possible. This brings me to, when is it the best time to sell a motorcycle? Well, anytime you need the money. No, we know that really the best time is spring, because people are getting excited about riding, and they want to get a new bike. You've been jonesing all winter. You've been indoors. You've been watching videos. You've been watching FÉROCE, right? And you've been liking and subscribing. So just getting psyched for the season. When you're ready to ride and you want to go out, especially on a day like today where, look at this. This is bluebird weather. It's beautiful. It's a tick chilly, but if we really wanted to ride, not a big deal. We could totally just go make that happen. It's a good time while people are super excited, not jaded, and they've come out of a long winter and want to purchase a new vehicle to make your bike available. If you sell a motorcycle during the wintertime, you might sell it for a little bit less, unless, of course, it's a super desirable motorcycle that will sell any time of year, which there are bikes that are like that. Summertime is fine. There's a lot happening, so there's a lot give and take motorcycle-wise. And in the fall, it's good to sell like sort of up until October. And then after October, there's a huge dip because of the holidays. Now, people will want to sell their motorcycle, and that might be because they want the money for the holidays for whatever they've got going on. But you also have to think that the buyers also need money for the holidays and may not necessarily want to throw down for a bike. As I always say, motorcycles are an emotional purchase. So oftentimes it doesn't really matter what time of year it is. If somebody wants it, they're going to buy it. I've had people come on here, I've done interviews, and Steve Camrad said something that was really funny in saying like, yeah, if you just want to go racing, just do Freedom Financial, which is, of course, you could just go out, get a loan any time of year and just buy the bike that you want to buy. So whatever floats your boat, make it happen. I'm going to push this motorcycle inside. I have wiped it down. I cleaned it. I've taken all my photos. I've done my video. I've taken notes on whatever I think is worth noting within the sale. And I'm also going to talk to the owner and figure out what he wants to do with the aftermarket parts, whether he wants to sell them with the bike or do something else with them. Step 4 is deciding, where are you going to sell the motorcycle? I like to keep it super easy and not get overwhelmed with trying to track all these different places to sell a bike. I've had the most success with selling it on Craigslist. Yes, people still use Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and ADV Rider. I like to use ADV Rider because the community is super active, and it's more geared towards a motorcycle that is ADV, standard, dirt bike, more along those lines. This particular KTM would fit in really well with ADV Rider. It's not necessarily the best place for like a Harley Davidson, but it's not to say that it wouldn't sell off an ADV Rider, because obviously every motorcyclist has a plethora of different motorcycles that they ride. It's pretty easy to set up a listing. For Craigslist, you do have to pay a $5 fee. Facebook Marketplace, you don't have to. An ADV Rider, you don't have to. If there's another place that you really have had success in selling your motorcycle, please leave that in the comments, because it would be great for everybody to know some of the other options that I may not be aware of or I just haven't used yet. I'm going to quickly run through what it's like to upload. And then once you do one listing and get it together, you can copy and paste most of that information into any other listing. I will typically start with Craigslist, and then I will copy and paste that information into Facebook Marketplace and then into ADV Rider. That's just the way I do it, but there's no right way or wrong way there. Now, the 5th and final step is fielding the inquiries. Now, a lot of people just don't want to sell their motorcycle because they don't want to deal with this part at all. It can be annoying, for sure it can be annoying. But if you set up parameters on how you are going to deal with inquiries, it's really easy. It actually is just not a big deal. So number 1 is to be aware that there are bots and there are scammers, I guess is the best way to say it, that will respond and ask you really weird questions. It becomes very evident what those are like because the language is all similar and it's all super weird. They want you to do something for them first before they even inquire. So an example might be, interested, and always like the grammar's a little off, but it'll be like, interested, but you need to email me here. And you're like, well, you're buying the motorcycle from me, so why would I have to email you there? Just be aware of that kind of stuff. Use your, don't get overly excited that you've got 50 people that are interested in the motorcycle, especially on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. I have found that the scammers can be pretty apparent, and I don't respond to, on Facebook Marketplace, typically, people who just use the auto reply, which is this available? Because that's an indication that it's a bot. And if they were truly interested in seeing the bike and wanting to buy it, they would make a comment that's more personal, such as, are you available tomorrow? Can I come by and see the motorcycle? Or they would have a question about the motorcycle. How old are the tires on it? And then you would be able to quickly assess that's not a question that a bot would pose. So just be really judicious in like how you answer those questions.
and giving away information. Now, as far as meeting people to purchase the bike, if you don't want them at your house, because again, these are strangers, and for the most part, we have a beautiful community that's very trustworthy. I don't think I need to tell anybody that it can be weird to have people come to your house. Now, as a female, I don't necessarily want a bunch of strangers showing up at my house, whether or not there's somebody else there or not there. I just don't really want perhaps people knowing exactly where I live. Or you may not want somebody to know what you have. If you have like a really beautiful collection of motorcycles, you might not want somebody to see that. And that is totally okay and understandable. So there's a few things you can do. One is that if you are okay with them coming by your house, but that you don't want them to see what you own, you set a time up, and then you can just close the garage door, have the motorcycle waiting outside, and that's the only thing that they see. Now, if you don't care, that's fine. I actually love, and I mean love, to go motorcycle shopping with friends. And I will invite myself along, or they will have me go with them, just as like a second hand. And that can work out really well as a buyer because, like, I would often go with the BFF to purchase a vehicle, purchase a motorcycle. And, you know, big dude shows up, wants to buy a bike, might be intimidating, might be a little weird. Somebody might, get a little uncomfortable with that. But if I show up as a smaller female, I'm not intimidating, obviously. And I'm personable. So if he asks, can I take this out for a test ride? A seller is going to be more inclined to let that happen if you have collateral. And so I would act as a collateral. This also works if you have children. And you don't want to make it weird or anything like that, but bringing in like a young adult or a kid or like a tween or something like that, and being like, I'm going to leave my child here with you, which shows that I trust you with my child, and you are going to trust me with your motorcycle, and nothing weird's going to happen. People are like super open to that, and it's fine then if you decide to test ride. But you also have to make that decision. Are you going to let somebody test ride your motorcycle? I think that this is on a per case basis. And if you have a very good sense of people and your intuition is pretty strong, just see how you feel. I've had times where I've sold a vehicle and the person showed up, and this is the majority of what happens, especially within the motorcycling community, is that we're just great people, right? And like-minded. So if you are selling a particular motorcycle, the people that are going to show up are the same type of person that loves that motorcycle. So you already have that in common. And it usually means that you've got like a lot to talk about. So when I would go with the BFF to purchase a vehicle or motorcycles, by the end of the buying process, or even if we decide you're not going to buy the vehicle, we're like lifelong best buddies. This is how the motorcycle community grows, is that you just realize like-minded people want to hang out and chit chat. And if you're super enthusiastic about motorcycling, you're going to want to talk to somebody about motorcycling and about the bike and like about the stuff and about your trips. And like the next thing you know, you guys are planning a trip somewhere together. It is not uncommon for this to happen. So that's great. But also if you just feel weird about it, and if you live in an area that has like a higher theft rate, totally cool to just meet someone in a public spot. Not a big deal. You want to meet in the parking lot of a Lowe's? Have at it. Great idea. Don't ever put yourself into a weird situation. It's just not worth it. It's totally not worth it. If somebody shows up with like 3 friends and it feels weird, shut it down. Just be like, you know what? I know you came over here, but, decided to change my mind and not sell the motorcycle. Like, you get bad vibes, get that person off your property ASAP. Totally fine. Not a big deal to do. Be a jerk. If you feel like it's for your safety, make it happen. But like I said, the majority of our community is just awesome. And you're going to want to, probably become lifelong friends with whoever's buying your motorcycle. Or you're going to figure out that you've got like 5 friends in common. Or you're going to figure out that you have owned the same 3 motorcycles over the years. Like, you just never know. Those are my 5 easy steps for selling a motorcycle. It doesn't need to be a complicated process. And we often think, okay, it's just too monumental. You got too much going on. And like I said, it's easier to purchase a vehicle than it is to sell it. And yes, that's true. But it also actually isn't as hard as we think to sell a motorcycle. We just need to be prepared and ready to do it. And the highlight of that is what are you going to do with that money? After you've made the emotional decision to let it go, what are you going to do with that money? It's so much better to take that money and invest it, whether that is actually investing it buying another motorcycle, paying it forward towards gear, paying it forward towards another motorcycle project that you might have, or you put it into a CD for 6 months, or you put it into high yield savings, whatever you want to do with that money. It's much better than having it sit in an asset that is depreciating in your garage, in your storage unit, getting in your way, and then every time you have to move it, you're annoyed and it's getting scuffed up and the mice are taking over it, or it's outside rotting through the seasons, which no motorcycle should do that. Don't do that. Please don't do that. The years go by quickly, and before you know it, you are sitting on a motorcycle that you should have sold 3 years ago. And it's so much more fun to, again, shop for a new motorcycle, or new to you. It doesn't need to be brand new off the showroom. Whatever the situation is, the new thing. It's exciting, and hopefully getting rid of something old and bringing in something new that's much more appropriate to where you are in life will make you inspired enough to want to sell it. I have a few videos coming up in the near future, and one of them is that I want to talk about the prices of motorcycles. It is a topic that I have seen a lot within the comments of people just saying that, motorcycles are really expensive and all that, and I want to break it down. Are motorcycles actually expensive? We'll see. As always, please like and subscribe if you liked what you heard today. I really appreciate it. I also would love to hear what's your experience been in selling. If you have a different way that you like to do it, or I missed a step, let me know in the comments. It's where all the good conversation happens. And as always, ride smart. Ciao.